Cohorts 1 and 2, can you make some noise for yourselves? Representatives of regional and international development organizations, distinguished delegates, youth leaders, stakeholders, partners, members of the media, ladies and gentlemen, welcome and good afternoon. Over the last day and a half, we have heard bold ideas. We've wrestled with difficult realities, and we have explored everything from livelihoods and climate resilience to digital transformation, justice, innovation, and community development. But if there is one truth that is echoed throughout this forum, it is this: that the future of the Caribbean cannot be built for young people. It must be built with young people. And those are remarks that we heard from our president yesterday of the Caribbean Development Bank. We have seen throughout this forum that Caribbean youth are not waiting on permission to lead. They are already leading. They are already innovating. They are already creating solutions in their communities, their countries, and across the region. And for that, they deserve a round of applause. The question before us now is not whether young people have a role to play. The question is whether our institutions, our governments, our development partners, and our leaders are prepared to fully embrace young people as partners in shaping the future that we all share. And that is precisely what this next session seeks to explore. The Future Leaders Network did not emerge in isolation. It was born out of the bank's youth policy and operational strategy, which was established at CDB's overarching framework to mainstream youth development, foster social inclusion, and strengthen the meaningful participation of young people across its 19 borrowing member countries. The strategy recognized what young people across the region have long made clear: that Caribbean youth continue to face deep and persistent barriers, including unemployment, underemployment, poverty, and limited access to decision-making spaces. It also recognized something equally important: in response, the bank established the Future Leaders Network as a structured mechanism for authentic youth engagement. It was designed as a space where young leaders from across the region could advise the bank, advocate for positive youth development outcomes, contribute practical solutions, and help ensure that youth perspectives are embedded in CDB's policies, programs, and operations. At this time, I invite Mr. Amilcar Santan to lead us into the intergenerational dialogue. Amilcar served as an advisor to the Future Leaders Network Cohort 1, and joining him will be Tahila Maloney Joseph, the outgoing Tobago representative and FLN Cohort 1 co-chair, Stephen Richards, Jamaica representative for the Future Leaders Network, Rianka Chance, the St. Vincent and the Grenadines representative of the Future Leaders Network, the Honorable Mario Boleg, Minister of Youth and Sports in the Government of the Bahamas, and Mr. Daniel Best, President of the Caribbean Development Bank. Amilcar, the floor is yours. Let's give it up for them.
Good afternoon, everyone. 1, 2. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Yeah, I have the easiest name to pronounce. It's Amilcar Sanatan. So I really appreciate it, and I expect the invention of Caribbean people all the time. So I want to big up the MC as well for introducing me in that way. I almost didn't come on stage. And I think I'm in an expert position to facilitate this intergenerational. I thought it was a youth panel when I saw the minister and the president here as well. And I am glad that these older face youth can play a critical role in our discussion. So again, I would like to reiterate whom we have here in conversation. Mr. Daniel Best, the president of the Caribbean Development Bank. Honorable Mario Boleg, the Minister of Youth and Sports, the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Tahila Maloney Joseph from Trinidad and Tobago, a business intelligence lead at ANSA Bank and Caribbean Youth Development Researcher. We also have Stephen Richards from Jamaica, a social development practitioner and social entrepreneur. And to close the innings, we have Rianka Chance from St. Vincent and the Grenadines, a youth advocate in education, indigenous rights, pizza and security. I had lunch already. Peace and security. This is a dialogue. And we are having this conversation in dialogue. This is our reasoning, as some people in Rastafari would say. I want to start with a question to you, President Best.
No, it's not on. Hello? Hello. All right, while we get the mic, sorry, though. Thank you, Amilcar. Great to see you again, my brother. And thank you for having us here. Look, one of the things we have realized pretty early on, certainly the youth policy, we brought youth in to help draft the policy. Because, while we can do some great work, we don't have we might have had it at one point, but the perspectives of youth and young people now are somewhat different from when I might have considered myself young. So that was the first thing, drafting that, getting that policy anchored by them. The next thing we did was to evaluate it recently, right? To see how far we've come. We've taken a hard and a sobering look at what we have actually done with youth and young people. But what we've done most recently is to determine that as a bank, as the region's development bank, we need to be known for three things. These are our three strategic focus areas. If we do nothing else, these are the things that you will work and raise families, and we can't keep lecturing and talking and telling them what you should want to live. We have a responsibility. So investing in youth is the very first thing in our strategic plan 2026 to 2035. And we put in our money where our mouth is. We have, I saw you just big them up, the two cohorts of the Future Leaders Network, which gives young people, bright young people like the three here on stage, a real voice to shape policy, to shape direction, to tell their development bank, this is the direction you need to be looking at. So we're being meaningful with that, but we also put in our money where our mouth is. At our annual news conference, This is not an agriculture thing they're talking about here. This is a young woman that somebody saw potential in, and CDB put the money behind, and she's creating a difference in her region. So when we talk about youth and young people at CDB, it ain't just talk. We walk in the walk. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Best. And I really appreciate, I think there were three interesting pillars that you kind of framed your response around. Looking at the policy, the financial investment, and third, speaking to the stories of the young people that exist. Minister Bowleg, reference was made to the youth policy, the work that is being done in the Commonwealth of the Bahamas. Can you speak to the efforts you are making around supporting youth aspirations and futures?
Thank you. Well, my mic is working for sure. Thank you for that question. Future generation that they want to live in, that we should leave behind for them.
Thank you, Minister. One of the things, if I may have the chance to follow up, while you were building out these youth infrastructures to protect their futures, is there any form of infrastructure that you are very proud about in your years of service?
Most definitely. When we look at our sporting facilities, we pride ourselves on ensuring that we have athletic and safe spaces for our young people and athletics to enhance their skill set. Again, like I said, young people in the Caribbean, as we know, are some of the best athletes around the world. We show it in Grifter, we show it in the Olympics, and so in order for us to maintain that level of high performance we ensure that we have some of the best stadiums and facilities, sporting facilities within the Caribbean to ensure that our Bahamian athletes are able to maintain their level of performance.
Thank you very much. I would like to acknowledge that we are having an initiative to invite questions, which we will open coming to the end of this session on the Slido. You can scan the QR code on the screens on my left. Aspirations, futures, and I would love to hear about your work in advancing that effort.
I don't know if my mic is working. Oh, it's working now. When I think about working with young person, as a young person myself, you know, a very unique example comes to mind that the first time that I would have conducted youth research, it was a group of us young people trying to figure out why it is young people of our generation weren't getting employed. And I think that was in 2023. So we sent out a survey across the Caribbean with over 400 respondents, and the results came back, and we were able to put a lot of context to what was happening and translate some of those findings to international organizations. When we finished conducting the research, someone came up to us and they said, "Are you conducting a WIPA?" That was the first time in my life I had heard about it. And apparently what we had done was a specific methodology that had been developed, youth participatory action research. And by leading the research ourselves and involving persons who were much older than us, just the approach of it being intergenerational, who were actually advancing a school of thought, a methodology that was leading children or guiding children through the process, we found that our methodology really stood the test of time because we were able to say, this is why we wanted to do the research. So they knew exactly from that what would get young people to do more research. And this is how we engaged our peers. And from that small research, we were able to impact not just lives in the Caribbean, but the methodology on the whole across the Commonwealth. So that was one of the greatest examples that I have in terms of youth engagement.
Most definitely, Tahila, and I'm sure that later in this dialogue you'll speak about this very political approach to research that you do, where you respect the agency of young people and see how they can guide a process. Rianka, I want to move to you. We want to save the man for last or save the best for last? Which one? I'm saying in the most gender equal, socially inclusive way. So, Rianka, we want to go to you around youth aspirations and futures and the work that you do.
Thank you, Amilcar. And an aspiration for the future of youth is for everybody to have equal opportunities and equal access. Now, in this day and age, we have a lot of education opportunities. A lot of governments are making it their business to have at least one graduate from each household at a university level. But similar to Tahila, we look at youth unemployment. Our many people in one market. Is everyone going to really benefit, or is it going to be too much of a tight competition? So how do we ensure that these people are giving back? These people can give back. These people can gain the depending on the government? Are they going to be depending on that somebody else does not have a cake making business, or somebody else is not in the hairdressing institution, or somebody else does not have a special education classes going on? Or are we going to actually have paid internships? Or are we actually going to have more jobs for the youth in order for them to advance themselves and to be economically stable?
Rianka, Stephen, same question to you.
All right, thank you very much. I'm going to take a quick historical approach to this question. In 1962, Sir Arthur Lewis made the observation that there exists a significant amount of unskilled labor in the subsistence sector. Now, we are fast forward now, in present, we have seen changes in the dynamics also experiencing brain drain across the region. Into deployment, and deployment really speaks to you creating and seizing opportunities by leveraging your own skill set, qualification, and unique story. And so what I want to see this generation actually engage in is say, how can I use my qualification to solve a problem? How can I use my unique experience to solve a problem? Because at the opposite end of a problem is an opportunity.
Exactly.
Thank you, Stephen. Actually, I want to build on that kind of historical consciousness that you brought into this reflection, because I want us to perhaps have some space for vulnerability in the way we discuss our own practice as youth development practitioners. We are all advancing that. one of the, perhaps if I could do things better, I've been involved with youth work formally since I was at the age 17. I believe being born into the 21st century, youth development became a domain unto itself. So we got involved with advocating for youth. And now, I think at the later end of my arc, I began to appreciate community needs. I started to look at the literacy rates in primary school education. And I was alarmed when I saw 1/3 of our boys fail English annually for the last 6 years. And then it is very high for boys and girls as well. So there's not even, there are gender dynamics to the performance and educational outcomes, but there are serious challenges for the majority of our population of Caribbean boys and girls. And now my main work is around pit latrine eradication in urban areas. So for me, the reflection is, how do basic needs shape social justice and development work? How do I bring the least of these, those in the most vulnerable situations, to the center? That becomes my work. Is there anything in your career, President Bess, that you could have, if you had a chance to do it twice, you would have done it better regarding youth development work? And I will, of course, ask the question to you, Mario Bolek, Minister.
I think I bring him on.
Thanks, Samuel. Thanks, Samuel. Look, and when you say my career, I'm going to take it from the lens of my development banking space, right? I've been in this space now for just about 17 years. And my response to that would be, I want to leverage what Stephen said. If we are to impact the youth, and I'm going to come to what I could have done better and maybe earlier, if we are to really impact youth development, we need two things, right? We need dedicated, accessible, patient capital. Patient is important because the thing. You know, we just be born and we were just great. So why they can't just hurry up and do it? They need patient capital, dedicated, accessible, and patient. Because we hear them. There's a gap between opportunities and access. And when they finally get access, you know, to build their brand, to build the businesses, takes time. It takes, and this is why I really want to, I do it here, but I want to big up my team, especially the private sector team, especially the youth development team, the incubator programs that we have, the future leaders, because we recognize that youth work takes time. They're still developing, right? So that's the first thing I think at CDB we could have probably tried to identify early. The next is data. Amilcar, you can't preach inclusivity if you don't know who's being excluded.
Exactly.
And why. You can't. But we talk a lot about inclusivity, and it sounds great, but we don't know who getting left out. Sorry, who being excluded. For those who may not be from the region. Right? That's important. And so you just touch on some. You touch on the communities. You touch on those persons. You dropped some statistics there just now, and Stephen did as well. Let me give you one. I ain't talking unemployment now. I'm talking another one that's even scarier. That my team tell me excluded. We got to reach them. And so, in my mind, earlier on, in my, certainly maybe during the 7 years I was director of projects, I would have focused a little bit more on trying to get capital that's patient and accessible.
Let's big up the president, yeah, man. That was a very good intervention. And we received that message as well in the way that you're thinking institutionally. Minister Boleg?
I believe your question was in my professional life, what would I have done to, if I would have done anything different?
Yes, Minister.
Well, let me first say that before I became a politician, I'm not a politician anyway, I'm a nation builder. I don't call myself a politician, but anyway, before I became a nation builder, I was a banker by profession. While I was a banker by profession for over 25 years managing commercial banks, I was also a coach that mentored young men and women in the high school system for 25 plus years also around the same time. And so I would have spent a lot of times around mentoring young people, seeing the challenges and the needs that they face. Investing more in young people has always been my priority, and meeting young people where they're at, and not believing that we who are the not too young has all the say, but it was always for me to meet young is the only thing that can allow young people to be who they are when they get on the court or on the field. Because
From the communities that you have in St. Vincent and the Grenadines.
I'm 20 years of age. We had an interesting debate on how do we meet the small man, right? So one of the strongest lessons that would have emerged from multiple forums, conferences, and even this conference is how do we meet that small man? And we can extend this now to how do we meet the vulnerable communities, whether it is indigenous, whether it is a rural community, whether it is women and girls, whether it is youth offenders, juvenile delinquents, right? Are we going to just you, right? And another thing too, I want to say, who feels it knows it. If I could sing, I would sing it, but I guess y'all would sing it for me though, right? So we have to now take youth as co-creators and not just as a feedback mechanism, right? Oftentimes, we develop something, we talk for people. We talk They are the ones who are going to create that solution that's going to help them. Because we don't know what will help them. We can have an idea, but is our idea good enough? So in my little years of being Key Club president at the age of 15 and being on the United Nations Youth Advisory Group at the age of 18 and turning into the YACCHA at 19 and Global Partnership for Education.
No flex, no flex.
No flex there. But in those little years, it has taught me that we have talent in the region. And when policy notes, and you are trying to implement that. But we're remaining stagnant because the people we are trying to assist, they are not necessarily co-creators. So we must ensure that they are, the mic trying to cut off, so tell me I'm talking too long, I almost finished. So we must ensure that they're co-creators, they're co-authors, they're co-developers, they're everything co. We must include them meaningfully and not just tokenistic. Well, not just. We cannot include them tokenistically. We have to have meaningful inclusion.
Thank you, Rianka. I'm going right to you, Stephen, and to also set up that you have done work in social enterprise. You have done work in faith-based leadership. You have also understand the role of families. So I understand you have been a man with many life experiences. And how does that come to bear on the way that you reflect on your youth development practice?
Done before. They were gatekeepers that keep you out. But now youth really, they really have a voice. Now, in terms of my own youth development process, and I agree with our president, Mr. Best, that there needs to be patient capital. And particularly, I am in the social enterprise field. And if we're going to make change, it means change must not only be about gaining money for myself, but it's also about addressing the social issues that are around us. And so I really believe something that I really admire, that it's not just about myself, but it's about my community. And I think that's what the message I want to leave.
Like Rianka actually established, a part of the youth movement who has served in different leadership capacities. At the regional level, you were part of youth development governance and its representative councils. What are one of those life lessons that you think you gained from working in the movement?
Oh gosh, that's so interesting. I think in looking, especially as, well, Rianka referenced it yesterday in terms of what some of the outcomes were. Being in rooms like this are inspiring and uninspiring at the same time. Because young people know what other young people are capable of. A key lesson for that, especially in forums like this where it's a mixed group for me, is ensuring that post-engagement, especially have such a meaningful engagement, we have some sort of plan, ting. We leave the space, and one thing that I wish I held on to was ensuring that after I was on these platforms, I had an action item to ensure I gave back to the community who placed me on that platform. And I think that young people also have to hold themselves accountable for the work that they're doing, because we are also employed. We are also allowed to have so many different spheres of power. And whereas there is a space for co-creation in terms of working with different generations, I think in ourselves, we have to be so intentional about how we are crafting these messages and ensuring that, as Rianka said, we are representing everyone. And Stephen said something and I disagreed with it. I don't think information is democratized. I think there are different levels of access, even amongst young people. I think when we had those discussions yesterday, we know that, and this is a cross generation. Currently, there's a digital revolution that is uniting and dividing us. Just being more aware of who is on your side, being more aware of who you have to advocate for beyond myself as a young person. The fact that I'm advocating for the region, as a Caribbean region, not just young people, but from the future that inculcates everybody in the region. That I'm also advocating for women, as a woman myself. I'm also advocating for persons who live in rural areas or places that are not city-bound, and just extending my advocacy just a little bit further, understanding those dichotomies, and being more intentional of ensuring that I am acting on it based on the power that is given to me from those platforms and from stages like that. If I had to do one thing again, it would building on that practice.
Big up, man, Tahila. I really appreciate that. That resonates with me. Leaders Network to pose questions. So those who are providing technical assistance can prepare the microphone to come to the center table. In the year 2018, the Caribbean Development Bank, recognizing those priorities of youth development, President Bess, would have seen the significance of gender equality and social inclusion, as well as the youth policy and operational strategy. The processes took about 2 years of deep consultation, multi-stakeholder analysis. It brought it into effect by 2020. And in 2023, in St. Lucia, at the Sir Arthur Lewis Community College, we had the opportunity to inaugurate the Caribbean Development Bank's Future Leaders Network. That was cohort 1, and it was co-chaired by Asha Gay Powell, and it was also co-chaired by Tahila Maloney Joseph. At that time, she was still Tahila Maloney, but big up yourself. So then we now have cohort 2 in full effect. This is 2.5 years of work, engagement, representation, and development as we are growing. Now I invite 2 new voices that we have in our network to ask questions of us. Please introduce yourself, your boring member country, and the question.
Good afternoon. My name is Aman Richardson. The Bahrain country that I'm coming from is the beautiful island of Anguilla. My question is to you, Mr. President. In countries like Anguilla, many young people must leave the island to pursue higher education, whether regionally or internationally. Many of us work hard academically and athletically to earn partial scholarships, but the financial cost still makes studying abroad difficult. As we are global citizens, Caribbean students who study overseas also return
Thank you very much for that question. Before I answer, you bowl fast? You just look
I
like
tell you, play for West Indies. I watch you, man.
So
if you
no.
don't, I want you to consider it. You know, when you stood up, I thought Jason
West
Holder was
Indies.
about to ask me a question, but
A winning West
please.
Indies.
yeah, we need you. So when you come back home, go and bowl fast. All right. So, but what I'll say to that. So I really want to thank you for the question because this is one that we are grappling with at CDB. Here's another concerning statistic. 60%, and in some countries, as high as 70%, but the average for the region is 60% of our matriculated population, those who have gone to university and being successful, completed the university course of study. An average of 60% of them are building economies outside of the Caribbean. That is deeply troubling, right? Because, you know, we've invested a lot in these persons and then they don't come home, right? But the question is wider than just scholarship. I mean, I appreciate the question about scholarships, but the question is wider than just scholarships. The question is, why don't they return home? And it comes down to one word, opportunities, right? Viable opportunities. You go overseas, outside the region, whether it is the UK, America, wherever, Europe, and you see opportunities and you get headhunted and whatever else. So then from a that comes down to creating the enabling environment for the private sector to create employment opportunities for you to come home. So this is why at this very meeting, we have the impact room. And this is why the Caribbean Development Bank is focusing more on developing the private sector. This is why we have launched the Trade Finance Guarantee Program. This is why we have signed well, we will be signing, but we have our board approved the agreement with Canada, the guarantee program with Canada. This is why we are focusing on this because as any minister in government and any prime minister will tell people to come back home. So it is is that as long as I am in this chair, as president of the Caribbean Development Bank, we will not turn away from this challenge. We will do what we need to do to create the enabling environment for the private sector to start to thrive and for young people to have an opportunity to come back home and build this region. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, President.
As a young woman, entrepreneur, and public servant, I believe sustainable development happens when people are empowered to create opportunities for themselves. How will Caribbean Development Bank support youth development initiatives that move beyond preparing young people for employment and instead equip them to become the job creators, community builders, and drivers of economic growth across the region?
Thank you. Thank you very much for that. First, I just want to point out that there's some other folks on stage. Okay. No, but thanks for the question. So I spoke earlier about Arissa, right? Arissa Dennis. And I'm going to speak some more about some other young people at the opening ceremony tomorrow. And I hope I think there are three things that a business needs to thrive, right? With respect to its products. It's quality, it is reliability, and it is essentially standards, right? So if you have reliable about next young people with that incubator experience to grow their businesses, not just to go there, like you said, and be an employee. What I'm particularly proud of is that in 2019 in Trinidad and Tobago, when we had our annual meeting, some members of the private sector team, I was director of project items, some members of my private sector division team came to me, and I see the head of private sector there, she wasn't the head then, right? But she was still, she was coordinator or something at that time. Came to me and said they want to do a fashion show at the Board of Governors meeting. To which I said, pardon? Because the Board of Governors meeting, certainly is of a certain standard. You bring the owners of the bank here, and CDB is pretty stiff-tight. And they said they want to have this fashion show because by that time we had the Cultural and Creative Industries Innovation Fund, or CIF. And we had this incubator, and we training people in various things, in festivals, in fashion, in visuals, in media. We training young people. But we had an incubator for fashion. And so we had about somewhere between 9 and 11, Lisa can remind me, persons who were trained in fashion design. And the Board of Governors is in Trinidad and Tobago. And they said, well, we want the persons to model their designs at the fashion show. Well, if you know me, I like to push the envelope a little bit on occasion. So I said, well, all right, let's do that. So when the Board of Governors brought for lunch on the day, we had set up a full runway in where the lunch was. And these persons came out and modeled their creations. It was an absolute, as a matter of fact, governors didn't want to go back in the session after. True story. But why I'm saying all of that, that's 2019. Last year at CariFesta 15 in Barbados, I went to one of the booths, and this lady from St. Vincent, and the grannies came up to me and said, you don't remember me? And I said, well, I must go. I said, I don't. Who are you? And she told me, and then she said, but I was one of the persons who modeled my designs. You get to CDB, that means you're brave. Everybody know you're brave, forget about that. How are we going to transform lives? The lives of real people, right? So that incubator program that we work on, for instance, the SIF program, the MSME program, the RCA program, the EPA Carry Forum Standby Facility. This is about reaching people and giving them the skills to fish. That's what it's about. Thank you.
Thank you very much. The question we have for you, Honorable Minister, is related to the brain drain. We have questions coming from SLIDO, which is persons put forward these questions. The question we have to you is around the brain drain and the state responses. So it connects what Amani was asking about opportunities for higher education and what you are doing in Bahamas, which might resonate with the Caribbean, around protecting the educational but also the economic futures of youth to redress the brain drain.
I don't know. Operate or work from environment outside the normal. These individuals. We in the Caribbean can't compare. Mindset when young people see the dollar value of their worth in other nations and to try to get them to come back home. So even from the government perspective, I mean, it's a hard sell. You know, we can do all we can, which the government itself can't hire all these people to bring them back. You need the assistance from the private sector, but it has to be a collaboration effort on how we can get these young persons to come back home. But we have to also find means and ways, because of living is, you know, when they look at the cost of living, then they say, you want me to come back home for $2 and I can make $5 over there? So I can't answer that. That's the best I can do.
But you did give an answer to some of those complexities in the way that we have to go through it, Minister. So thank you. One of the questions I would ask for our youth leaders here is another question that came from the floor. And maybe if you could give just an expression of an urgent intervention. The question was around the disengagement of boys and young men from society, which sometimes lead them as their cultural patterns around them as perpetrators, but also victims of crime and violence. I think added with that, with the issue of gender-based violence and some of the hardships of our young women and girls experiencing our society. As youth leaders, where gender equality is important to us, where do you see your work working at its intersection?
I could actually take it first. So as you'll realize, my politics is very different. I do see youth as having the ability to do all else. I never see them in a disadvantaged capacity. Currently, I would say an urgent intervention that is needed is the way that we measure crime in our countries. Our systems are set up to target and capture young males of a particular demographic. And then we wonder why these young males you did say earlier that the data is missing. Him as a known offender, he feels as if he is just a number and therefore he cannot re-enter society successfully because he is the face of crime and criminality in his region, it disengages him and he is not going to want to re-enter society. If when he is born, as he is born, he looks a certain way, he come from a certain community, he have a certain education, if he is more likely to fit the statistic of a criminal than the statistic of a success story in our countries, then we are setting ourselves up for failure.
Yes, that's true.
Therefore,
It's true.
what is therefore needed is for a revamp of our criminal systems, our policing systems that include indicators for criminality and not just crime-related indicators, but also social indicators and economic indicators that allow us to see these persons as not just risks, but opportunities for redirection. And I would say that that is something that requires urgent attention. How do the police see these young boys? How does the system see these young men? And if we can count them differently, if we can see them differently, then it is going to change everything for them. How we design systems and policies around them, everything can change based on how we count them, if I have to submit that.
Okay.
Thank you to her.
To add to another dimension of what Tehila just mentioned, the distinction between a role model but Stephen lacks proximity because Stephen is in pursuit for greener pasture. What we really need are mentors because it creates a gap for gang members to now serve as mentors. And so those who are seen as a role model, because they're often pursuing greener pasture, they don't have the influence over the young people as they should. And so what is really needed, I really believe, is a form of mentorship with proximity. Because without proximity, you cannot influence behavior the way you want to. And so that will take a lot of us who are at least a first degree, go back to your community. Talk to those persons who did not have the opportunity. Let them believe that it is possible. And also create pathways for them so that they can achieve success on their own as well.
Yeah, man.
Stephen added, so now I'm going to multiply. And to multiply to that, new transition today. Because they're vulnerable, they're in these situations, and they're in these situations for a reason. So how are we they go to these detention areas or thank you.
No,
Oh, we
She's
got to-
completing her thoughts. It's her.
Yes, or they go to these institutions where they're supposed to be getting a new life. When they come out, there's such a stigma where they are afraid to actually show the world that I am changed, because they feel as though once they go back out into the workplace or they go back out into schools, they are going to be judged so hard. We have a rise in mental health challenges. Parents, teachers, older adults, even the youth may look at somebody and say, what do they have to stress about? But the reality is everybody has a burden, and people do not carry that burden the same. Some may go to violence because that is what they see in their community. I know of persons who see people die in front of their houses, not naturally. We have the lack of mentors in some areas. So we must address the root cause in order to address the problem of gender-based violence, and to improve on that restorative justice. I close now.
No, Rianka, you were great. Thank you. So we are closing off this dialogue, and I'm definitely in their pregnancy term. So we have data around these points, and these are imperatives. Likewise, we support the work around critical masculinities, mental health, well-being, the way that we use statistics to support, not just to spot and alienate, but to provide quality interventions. And I know everyone here has an investment in gender equality. As I close, can we just give one call to action, and we'll start with Rianka and close with our president here. But I really value every contribution. This is a chance to say in 10 seconds something to our listeners here. All the beautiful young people and faces I'm seeing in this audience, they're so young. I appreciate you all. Thank you very much for being here. So we're going to have our speakers close.
I'm glad that you started with the baby of the group this time. But if it's one thing I must say to the young people here, whether you're an experienced make our small island developing states, as they like to call us, but the Caribbean community and our region, the top of
Thinking about the challenge, and the opposite end of a challenge is the solution. And you are that solution. Thank you.
Thank you, Stephen.
You know, based on all the contributions that I've heard today, you know, even from both Minister and the President, as well as my fellow youth panelists, one thing that I want us to walk away with is that whereas we want to create opportunities for young persons in terms of entrepreneurship, I think only looking outside established institutions when the majority of young people will be employed by someone and not ensuring solutions target young people who also are based in institutions, the acceleration of careers. We're talking about young people who are already within all of these systems, and how are we pulling them out and ensuring that they feel seen and heard in these conversations as they're here. I would ask everybody, you know, after this to go and talk to your nearest young person in this room. Find out what their aspirations are, if it's within an institution or entrepreneurship. And I would say have that conversation with them and provide that kind of guidance to them. That is something that everybody should feel responsible to do right after this call to action, because right after this session, because it can't just be about one group of young people, but every young person we come into contact with, we should want to leave them with some kind of positive impact. And that's what I would like to see. I think that was more than 10 seconds though.
11. Thank you very much.
Young persons here in the Caribbean to unlock your voices, let your desires be known so that you can build the future you want to see within the nation or the Caribbean island state that you live in.
Thank you very much, Minister. And President Best.
So, oh, it's working now. So, two very, no, I think it's on, yeah. Two very quick things. One, to the young persons, the young people in this room, whether it is FLN Cohort 1 or FLN Cohort 2 or joining us online. If you have benefited from this Youth Fire Forum or this session, even this session, you are now an ambassador. You have a responsibility to go and tell, there's somebody out there, some young person, your shoulders, and there's somebody out there who is absolutely counting on you to help you lift them up. That's one. Two, we are the Caribbean Development Bank. We are in the business of transforming lives. Forget all the statistics, forget all the data, forget all of that. The Caribbean Development Bank is in the business of transforming lives. And notwithstanding what may be happening because that is why we are here. Thank you.
More than ever, we realize that our policymakers, our president, the people that are in high-level meetings and final decision-making plans. We now turn more directly to the story and work of the Caribbean Development Bank's
Good evening. Good evening, everyone. So, ladies and gentlemen, the first cohort of the Futures Leaders Network was onboarded in May 2023 during the bank's annual meeting. Since then, they have served with distinction, grace, and patience. They entered this space as the inaugural cohort, helping to give shape, meaning, and momentum to a new institutional mechanism for youth engagement within the Caribbean Development Bank. To Cohort 1, I see you all out there. On behalf of the Caribbean Development Bank, we express our deepest gratitude for your service as members of the inaugural Futures Leaders Network. For the past 2 years, you have given your time, your talent, and voice to advance youth development across the bank's borrowing member countries. supported in policies and programs. You have fulfilled that mission with distinction. During your tenure, you have helped highlight the substantial challenges facing Caribbean youth while also offering practical solutions informed by your own perspectives, experiences, and country context. Your service has positively influenced the bank's approach to youth engagement. Today, the FLN stands as a core pillar of the implementation of the youth policy and operational strategy. And your contributions will directly inform the work of the second cohort and those who the outcome statement on behalf of the outgoing and incoming cohorts of the Future Leaders Network.
Opening ceremony, you've seen us now as we're closing, but we don't speak on our own behalves. I want to ask the FLN to stand so persons can see who you are and see that you are actively contributing in this space. Please give them a round of applause.
Young people continue to navigate an increasingly uncertain world, shaped by economic volatility, climate change, technological disruption, social inequities, rising cost of living, and growing concerns regarding safety, well-being, and opportunity.
Despite these challenges, however, Caribbean youth remain resilient, innovative, committed to building stronger communities, sustainable economies, and a more prosperous future for our region. We are entrepreneurs, we are students, we are professionals, innovators, advocates, we are artists, we're community leaders, we're even government officials. And most importantly, we here are change makers. We are already contributing to national and regional development through climate action, digital innovation, civic engagement, business development, social entrepreneurship, and community transformation, just to name a few. And equitable development across the Caribbean.
We recall the commitments made by Caribbean governments and regional institutions under the UN 2030 Agenda for Sustainable Development, the Sustainable Development Goals, the CARICOM Youth Development Action Plan, the SIDS Accelerated Modalities of Action, Samoa Pathway, and other international and regional frameworks that affirm the importance of youth participation and empowerment.
We also acknowledge the continued efforts of the Caribbean Development Bank and its partners to strengthen youth engagement through initiatives such as the Future Leaders Network. and ongoing implementation of the bank's youth policy and operation strategy. We also recall that the CDB, in its strategic plan for 2026 to 2035, has outlined investing in youth as one of its operational priorities.
We further recognize that meaningful youth participation, regional cooperation, innovation, and inclusive development are essential to addressing the interconnected challenges facing Caribbean societies.
We, representatives of the CDB-FLN and participants of the Youth Fire Forum 2026, gathered here in Nassau, Bahamas, on the occasion of the Caribbean Development Bank's 56th annual meeting of the Board of Governors.
1. Reaffirm that young people must be meaningfully included in decision-making processes at local, national, regional, and international levels.
2. We call upon governments, development institutions, and private sector
economic resilience and environmental sustainability.
We also call for increased investment in climate adaptation, disaster risk management, resilient infrastructure, renewable energy, and community resilience programs, with dedicated opportunities for youth participation and leadership.
We additionally recommend the development of regional capacity building programs in disaster risk financing and climate resilience, ensuring equitable access for all Caribbean territories.
We advocate for accelerated digital transformation across the region through investments in digital literacy, digital infrastructure, artificial intelligence, cybersecurity, digital safeguard, well-being, psychosocial support, well-being services, safe community spaces, sport,
engagement.
10, we reaffirm the importance of strengthening regional integration, mobility, collaboration, and knowledge sharing across Caribbean youth.
We recommend the implementation of robust monitoring, evaluation, and accountability mechanisms to ensure that the youth-focused programs and policies we list in this report achieve measurable and sustainable outcomes.
Finally, we call upon the Caribbean Development Bank and its development partners to continue mainstreaming youth engagement across programs, projects, and investments, ensuring that young people remain central partners in advancing regional development.
As we conclude, we reaffirm that Caribbean youth are not waiting for the future to arrive. We are already building it.
Throughout this forum, young people have demonstrated that innovation, resilience, creativity, and leadership exist in every corner of our region. The recommendations contained within this outcome statement are our collective vision for a Caribbean that is more inclusive, sustainable, prosperous, secure, and resilient.
Together, let us move beyond consultation to collaboration, beyond participation to partnership, and beyond aspiration to action.
By investing in young people today, we will strengthen the Caribbean for tomorrow. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Asha Gay and Karan. That statement reflects not only the work of the first cohort, but also the continuity of purpose that will guide the Future Leaders Network into its next chapter. We honor the outgoing Kimberly Giddens. Of course. I'm so grateful to Kimberly. Kimberly has definitely been instrumental even in my development throughout my tenure in youth development, and it would be remiss of me not to thank you. Thank you so very much. Ladies and gentlemen, all right, AV team, can we get a little bit of junk on the music as we highlight our outgoing cohort 1? Since we're in the Bahamas, we have to do it Bahamian. We have to give them a little thing to spruce them up. We're about to highlight in order of country. We're going to say thank you to our cohort 1. All right, we can turn it up a little bit, you know.
From my island, Barbados, Miss Jillian Rowe.
From Belize, Mrs. Ruth Gutierrez Corley.
From Dominica, from the Kalinago community,
Yeah.
Mr. Ferguson Valmond.
From Grenada, Miss Bevon Shadell Charles.
From Guyana, Mr. Rondell Ned.
All the way from Haiti, Mr. Adeline Pierre.
From Jamaica, no stranger to the stage. We've heard from her in the opening. We've heard from her a short while ago. Our FLN co-chair and Jamaica representative, Miss Asha Gay Cowell.
From Montserrat, Miss Tiffany Scarrett.
St. Kitts and Nevis, Mr. Steve Walters Jr.
A fellow comrade of mine from St. Lucia, Mr. David Henry.
From St. Vincent and the Grenadines, Miss Shamora McNee.
All the way from Suriname, Soraya de B. Jagro.
From the Bahamas, Miss Lashante Sampson.
From the Twin Island Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, the home of Carnival, Mr. Gila, I'm saying it this time, from the Caribbean Regional Youth Council, Kendall Vincent.
And our advisor, moderator extraordinaire, poet, mentor, and all of the wonderful things that have been said about him, the academic, the sage, Mr. Amilcar San. Odo, I want to say, I shouldn't say Miss Janelle Odo, Senator Janelle Odo. From Barbados, our advisor on disabilities inclusion. Thank you.
And now, ladies and gentlemen, we bring to the stage, we're going to invite them now to come and join us, the incoming cohort of the Caribbean Development Bank's Future Leaders Network. No, I want you to stay with me. You don't get to leave. We ask We heard from her earlier today from the British Virgin Islands, Fina Andrews.
From the Cayman Islands, joining us for the first time in the FLN, Danielle Seals.
From the Nature Isle, Dominica, Aaliyah Dana Brady.
And from the Spice Isle, Grenada, Dion J. Ald.
All the way from Guyana, we have Rondell Ned.
And from Haiti, Kenzie Jean-Pierre.
From the land of wood and water, we have Mr. Stephen Richards of Jamaica.
And Detrell Rogers of Montserrat.
We now welcome from St. Kitts and Nevis, Dominique Williams.
And from my second home, St. Louis. Soraya Debi Jagro. Would be anyone who could fill Tahila Maloney's shoes, but Jamala Alexander is doing a wonderful job. Welcome, Jamala.
And from the Turks and Caicos Islands, Ariel Neely. Ladies and gentlemen, please join me in recognizing and welcoming the second cohort of the Caribbean Development Bank's Future Leaders Network.
I'd like to invite Division Chief of the Social Sector Division, Dr. Martin Baptiste, to join us on stage. None of this is possible without you. You see the vision, you support us in whatever we do. You are a pillar of strength and a champion for youth development. Welcome. Kendra Antiocha, please join us.
I'll just pull this. You guys might have to go in the front. We are most certainly looking forward to the work that the future Squeeze up, squeeze up, squeeze up. We know what we do with that lunch weight. We suck it in. the future for our region. I want to remind you that the future is heavy for you all, but we know that you most certainly can get it done. Do we have faith and trust in them? Most certainly, and they will. And so now to the end of our day, to all of you that have been, just beautiful attendees, beautiful participants. You guys have been engaging. You guys have contributed to our closing statements, to everything that we've done today. Can you give yourselves a round of applause for everything that's been accomplished over the past 2 days? Thank you, of course, to all of our stakeholders, to all of the technocrats within CDB that made this possible, to the Commonwealth of the Bahamas, our host government for this. We are so grateful and so appreciative. We have come to the end of our ceremony. Tahila, do we have anything else to add? Okay, we've come to the end of our ceremony. It has been my pleasure to moderate for you for the past 2 days. My name is Marcos Bristol Jr., and I look forward to seeing all of the many outcomes that will happen from not just this meeting, from your continued advocacy for young people across the region. Let's remember that we are the ones that contribute to fixing every problem that we see. Every problem that we're quiet on continues to evolve, and that's not the way we want it to go. Ladies and gentlemen, have a beautiful day, and we look forward. Oh, one second.
Are the advocate from Grenada questioning how we can leverage our orange economy, the young person from Trinidad questioning the data and asking who shapes our narrative, and Suriname concerned about our climate and energy, all asking different versions of the same question. What kind of Caribbean do we want to build? For 2 days we listened, and there's an art to listening. The elders taught us that. The way grandmothers listen across kitchen tables, the way aunties listen on verandas, stories of innovation, of entrepreneurship, stories of communities creating solutions where others saw obstacles, stories of young people determined not merely to inherit the Caribbean, but to shape it. And somewhere between the conversations, the workshops, the difficult questions, and the shared laughter, the reckoning came. None of us arrived carrying the fire alone. The fire was inherited from indigenous peoples whose knowledge of land and sea still guides this region, inherited from ancestors who survived systems determination before it became reality. The fire didn't begin with us, but it burns within our bellies. For generations, the colonizers named our realities. They named our lands, they named our oceans, they named our possibilities. And there's power in a name, you know, because too often they named our limitations as well. They called our knowledge primitive, our ambitions unrealistic, our resistance disruptive, our dreams impossible. They called us wild. Wild. Challenged colonial systems were called wild. The people who imagined independence were called wild. But what they called wild was never reckless. It was fire. And perhaps that's why we call it the Youth Fire Forum. Not because it lit a fire, but because it revealed one. A fire burning in young Caribbean people who refuse silence, who speak honestly about climate change while the waters around us rise, who speak honestly about food insecurity while families struggle to put meals on the table, who speak honestly about inequality, sustainability, governance, and development, because you can't solve what you refuse to name, and you can't transform what you refuse to acknowledge. For 2 days, we chose honesty, not because we love the Caribbean less, but because we love it enough to tell the truth. And perhaps that leaves us with a question. What is fire? We know what it's not. It's not a logo, it's not a slogan. It isn't a theme printed on banners and programs. Fire is older than this room. Fire is older than our institutions, older than our countries. Fire crossed oceans. Fire survived plantations, it survived empire, it survived every attempt. Even when the truth fire isn't anger, but sometimes it burns with anger. Fire isn't rebellion, though one flame becomes another, one voice becomes many, one idea becomes a movement, one generation lights the way. And we must protect it. Protect it from cynicism, from apathy, from the temptation. only carry. In GDP, infrastructure, or statistics. It is the fire carried by its people. And I want y'all to join me when I say 2, 3. I want everybody to say fire. So 2, 3. Fire. 2, 3. Fire. 2, 3. Fire. And that is exactly it. A fire inherited, a fire protected, a fire shared. A fire that refuses extinction, a fire that refuses silence, that refuses surrender, a fire that continues to burn, generation after generation, lighting the way forward. That is fire, and that is who we are. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, the fiery Grandissia Kelman of Barbados. She carried for the past 2 days, something that she sat down and wrote just with a moment's notice this morning. A